Greetings and welcome to Human Origins, a course brought to you by the School of Human Evolution and Social Change at Arizona State University. My name is Alex Slade. I'm an anthropologist and I'm also the director of the school. Our school was formed about 10 years ago to deliver a really unique research and training environment for people who want to understand what is unique about the human species and how we can leverage that uniqueness to solve current problems. We focus across a range of issues from culture to language to lifespan. But in doing all of that, one of the most important questions is why are humans unique? And most importantly, where do we come from? And this is the focus of this course. The course is led by Don Johanson, one of the world's leading paleoanthropologists. I first learned about Don Johanson's extraordinary work in paleoanthropology when I was an undergraduate myself back in New Zealand some 3 decades ago. Much has changed in the world of human origins since, and many of the most important discoveries that drive that science have taken place here at the Institute of Human Origins at Arizona State University, where Don has led an extraordinary team doing extraordinary research. Our faculty come from a variety of social science disciplines, but our core purposes are to understand what makes humans unique, things like culture and advanced language and cooperation, and how we can use those features of the human capacity to solve major problems that we face today. The course that comes to you focuses in on the question of where humans come from. I'm extremely proud to be able to bring this course to you. It's the result of an amazing amount of work by our faculty, students and staff. It's one of many courses that we offer in our school, where we have over 600 majors and nearly 200 graduate students studying with us, many of them in the area of paleoanthropology. At ASU, we like to think big, and we work together to try and push the boundaries of what is possible. This course is the result of that type of effort. I hope you're as inspired by this course as I was as an undergraduate, learning about these discoveries and why they're important. The underlying message of what makes humans unique is a timeless one, and I invite you to enjoy and learn.
Welcome to Human Origins. I'm Don Johanson, and I'm going to be your instructor in this course. This has been a subject that has been of enormous interest to me ever since I was a very young boy, because it deals with all of humanity. It deals with important questions of where did we come from? How are we different from other animals? What makes humans unique? It's your story, and I think you're really going to be interested in knowing something about where you came from and why you're so unique as a human today. We're going to examine the fossil evidence. That's sort of the alpha evidence. We search the world. I work mostly in Africa, searching for fossils that have lain in suspended animation for millions of years, for example. What do they tell us about our earliest ancestors? We look at the archaeological evidence. We look at stone tools, pottery, and so on. That tells us something about the behavior of our ancestors. The earliest fossils date to about 6 million years, and we will trace that evolutionary journey from about 6 million years to the emergence of us, Homo sapiens, about 200,000 years ago. We'll look at this in a historical framework. It's interesting to look at the times at which these fossils were discovered, the people who discovered them. There's some very interesting characters in the study of human origins. What impact did those discoveries have on their lives? And what impact did those discoveries have on our understanding of who we are today? We'll look at competing ideas. Everybody in this field has their own view of how we began, how we put all of these fossils into a framework, what we call a family tree, and we'll explore competing ideas, competing interpretations. We'll look at the biological evidence, as I said, which are the fossils themselves. We'll look at the cultural side of what it means to be human, looking at the archaeological record and how that is correlated perhaps with, say, brain expansion, for example. And most importantly, we'll look at our place in nature and our place among primates like monkeys, apes, and so on. Paleoanthropology is a big word, so let's break it down. Paleo is Greek for ancient, and anthropos is Greek for man or humankind. And ology, of course, as we all know, we use ology at the ends of things like geology or paleontology or psychology, the study of. So paleoanthropology is simply the study of human origins. One of the things that's so fascinating is that as we dig deeper into the past, we find that some of those ancestors begin to look much more like contemporary apes. Charles Darwin, for example, and others recognize that there are many similarities between ourselves and chimpanzees, for example. And there must have been a common ancestor, and that's a key concept for us in this course. It's a key concept because it helps us understand our relatedness to other creatures on this planet. Here, if you look at a human skull and a chimpanzee skull, you see they're very different. What were the forces of natural selection? What were the forces of evolutionary change that made us look so different? Why do chimpanzees look the way they do? Why do we look the way we do? Chimps have very big faces and small brains. We have big brains and small faces. And one of the great pioneers in helping us understand our relationship with those apes is, of course, Jane Goodall, who we'll talk quite a bit about later on. We often hear this common objection to people who have some reticence about accepting the idea of evolution, particularly human evolution. If humans evolved from apes, why are there still apes? Well, they often say, if we evolved from chimpanzees, why are there still chimpanzees? Well, we didn't really evolve from chimpanzees, did we? We evolved from a common ancestor with chimpanzees. Chimpanzees evolved and we evolved in two different evolutionary trajectories. All the primates, lemurs, lorises, tarsiers, New World monkeys, Old World monkeys, the apes and ourselves, and we'll talk about what we mean by primates later on, but this is an order within mammals that includes ourselves. We all had a common ancestor going way back in time, and you can see the various bifurcation points here that led to different evolutionary trajectories. There are creation stories. Of course, every culture has its own interpretation of how we came to be. That's part of the excitement and interesting aspect of what it means to be human. Each society has their own creation myth, whether you're a Hopi Indian or a New Guinea native or whatever, you have your own creation story. This is the cultural side to trying to understand how we became human. And while these are based very largely on how we grew up, what society we were in, what beliefs we inherited from our childhood. But in this course, we're going to look at naturalistic explanations. We're going to look and use the scientific method to try to understand the evidence that has been left behind in the geological record and to subject that evidence to strict scientific method. And some methods, the same methods used to study the evolution of life is all life. And we're going to apply those methods to understanding our origins, the origins and the evolutionary history of humans. One of the interesting things is that we now know about DNA. When Darwin came up with the idea of evolution, he didn't know anything about DNA. He didn't know how things were inherited. And yet today we know that all life possesses DNA. So that DNA has a very ancient beginning, way back, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of years. And this is what ties all life together. This is the commonality of life, the strands of DNA that make us who we are, that make your dog, that make a tulip, for example. All creatures on the planet, all biological life is unique, because it's special and distinct and different. We call them different species, as you will learn. But humans, to a very large extent, as a wonderful geneticist by the name of Dobzhansky said, we are the uniquest. And largely because we're a combination of biological evolution and cultural evolution. And there is this great diversity among humans across the globe. We often use it in adverse ways, but we should embrace that idea of diversity and celebrate the diversity of what it means to be human, as you see here in native North Americans or people from southern Ethiopia or New Guineans. We want to try to understand what are some of the features that make us so unique. One of them you may not have thought of is the way we get around. We walk upright on two legs. How many other animals do you know who do that? Not very many. Kangaroos hop, for example. Dinosaurs were on two legs. Birds, of course. But we have, in the process of becoming an upright walker, rather than walking on all fours, we've retained this flexibility in our hands. These have not changed very much. But this is our mode of locomotion. It's a very efficient way of getting around. It burns less calories. It may not be the safest or steadiest, but it certainly helps us get around, and it certainly must have been a critical breakthrough in human evolution, because there are now billions of us on this planet. How do we use our hands? Hands are one of the things that's so unique. Our hands are not specialized. And what I mean by that is, if you look at an animal like a horse, which has a very specialized hoof, it has only one digit left, and it can run faster than we will ever be able to. But it limits it. They can't do anything else. We can, with this very generalized, ancient sort of 5 digits, do everything from run a computer to do what you see me doing in this picture, cleaning an ancient fossil under a microscope. So it's good to be a generalist rather than a specialist, as we'll find out in evolutionary biology. We live in very complex societies, which is one of our very unique characters. We live in societies that take a lot of learning for us to appreciate and to participate in. Other animals, for example, that are don't live in such complicated societies as we do, are often mature very quickly, and can do what they do very soon after they're born. We have a long period of learning. We are unique in that regard because of this complexity in which we live. We have language. And what I mean by language is what I'm using right now, what you're listening to, what you're thinking about now. We think in abstract terms. We think in ways that are uniquely different from our closest relatives, like chimpanzees. They never talk about yesterday or tomorrow as we can, and we sort of symbolize everything around us in our own language, for example. Einstein's language was mathematical. He had E equals mc squared, which is a symbolic way of expressing a profound idea. And language leads to these abstract ideas. When it came in to our ancestry is one of the great questions that people are constantly trying to unravel and understand, because it seems to be that this may be the final step that made humans so incredibly unique. Other mammals, if you look at our closest relatives, here you see a young chimpanzee sticking a twig or a piece of grass into a termite mound to eat them for food. They live in much more restricted societies. They walk around on all fours, very different from us. They use very rudimentary tools that probably wouldn't preserve in the fossil record. They have very rigid social organizations. Monkeys, for example, are very rigidly organized. They have limited learning. There's just so much you can teach the family dog. You can't teach the family dog to play the piano. You can't teach the family dog to answer the phone. But you can teach them certain things, but not the sorts of things that symbolic language allows us to do. Language for most of these creatures, communication maybe is a better word, is more situational. Among chimpanzees, they will use certain calls or barks to announce that there's a fruiting tree nearby that has lots of delicious fruits to eat, or there's danger, or they're threatening one another. But these are situational. They happen in the moment. They are not abstract. Our capacity, the human capacity for culture, is literally limitless. Look around the world. Landing on the moon, men walking on the moon, extraordinary. No other creature can do this. It is the essence of what it means to be human, to have this extraordinary, unlimited capacity for language, or for culture. Well, how about a little bit about your professor? Who am I, and how did I get interested in this sort of endeavor? I mean, not everybody ends up being an anthropologist. So how did that happen? Well, I am a paleoanthropologist. I was born in Chicago and grew up really in Connecticut on the east coast of the United States. And when I was around 9 years old, I met an anthropologist who was walking his dog, and I introduced myself to his dog first, I think, and we became friends, this anthropologist. He studied cultural anthropology and went off to Africa and studied various tribal groups. And he had a vast library, something I didn't have in my house. I was the son of Swedish immigrants, and we didn't have much in terms of an academic background. And he gave me access to that library. And I found a book when I was 13 years old, a wonderful book by Thomas Henry Huxley, who, as you will learn, was one of Darwin's very, very close friends. And it was called Man's Place in Nature. And I was fascinated by the idea that we had an evolutionary ancestry, that we had a common ancestry probably with the African apes, and that there must be fossils out there somewhere that would document that extraordinary evolutionary history. And I began to get so interested in this that I felt that this was a pursuit that was really worth following, because it was about us, it was about ourselves, it was about me. And when I was 16 years old, there were major discoveries made in Tanzania, in East Africa at Olduvai Gorge, and I decided at that point, that's what I want to do. I want to go to Africa. I want to follow the course of paleoanthropology. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Illinois, where I studied a lot of archaeology and learned how to map sites and record sites and how to excavate and so on. And then I was very fortunately accepted into the doctoral or the PhD program at the University of Chicago and studied with a wonderful man, Clark Howell. And he took me to Africa in 1970. And I began to work on one of these major archaeological, anthropological expeditions and really caught the African bug and decided this is what I'm going to do. And in graduate school, I specialized in the study of paleoanthropology. And in 1974, just 2 years after I was beginning to work in a completely new area, I had the great fortune in Ethiopia of finding a skeleton that now has become iconic in terms of paleoanthropology, who's been nicknamed Lucy. And I didn't know I would make such a great discovery. It was my childhood dream, and it was an extraordinary moment for me of self-discovery when I made this. And following that, I founded the Institute of Human Origins, a world-renowned think tank that focuses particularly on paleoanthropology, and it's been located here at Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona, since 1997. I am professor at Arizona State University and a professor in the School of Human Evolution and Social Change, and as I said, a founding member or founder of the Institute of Human Origins. I think you're going to like this course. I look forward to bringing to you this exciting story of where we came from, where we are today, and maybe even look a little bit towards where we might be going as a species.